Let's bring in Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, promotes voting in Georgia and around the country. He's been on the show many times on voting issues, like this, but voting rights issues, I guess is the best way to put it. It's good to have you back, Cliff. We haven't had you on in a while. So you heard what Nick said. I think you probably heard what the president said. There's been a back and forth all week on this. What's your view of what's not only happening in Texas, but how it fits into kind of a larger conversation about voting rights?
Yeah. So thanks for having me. I'm not at all surprised that Mick Mulvaney would come on national television and say things that he blatantly knows is not true. Such as the fact that that this redistricting, that this gerrymandering only happens in Democratic states. It happens across the board. Wisconsin is one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. Texas is already, in fact, part of the reason they're going to have trouble with what they're currently trying to do is because they're already in litigation about how gerrymandered their maps are. At the end of the day,
but
it was
the blue states like Illinois, and they are pretty gerrymandered. I guess the larger point you would make is that it's both sides, that everybody's been doing this.
Well, no, that's not so much the point, but the point, yes, there are examples from both sides, but we need to be clear. Only one side, Democrats, tried to pass legislation, voting rights legislation, which would get rid of partisan gerrymandering. Republicans filibustered that and blocked that. It is only in Democratic states, including California, where you've seen efforts to do bipartisan independent commissions, including California, including New York. There is not a single red state that has done so. And so it's not so much a both sides argument. One side has clearly been trying to deal with this issue of gerrymandering, while the other side, Republicans, have been making it worse. But the other thing I need to say very quickly is that we need to be clear that in Texas, this is not an issue of partisan gerrymandering. This is racial gerrymandering, right? Which still, even with this Supreme Court, still is unconstitutional. This gerrymandering that they are doing is squarely directed, is squarely based on race. It is squarely disenfranchising black and brown voters and black and brown elected officials. That is one of the differences between what's going on right now in Texas and some of the other examples.
Well, if that's the case, if that's the argument that you're making, it sounds like one that might be made upon appeal. Like, in other words, that could be used. Voting Rights Act, I suppose, as a way to push back if this goes through. Is that going to be the plan, you think, from advocates in Texas?
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be on appeal. That's the argument that's being made right now. Keep in mind, as I said, Texas.
But I mean, if they put it through, you can push back. There'll be court cases based on race.
They are currently in litigation.
Oh, right.
I want the audience to understand. They are currently in litigation where they are arguing, the state of Texas is arguing, no, there was no racial gerrymandering in the current districts. That was strictly political. But right now, what they are trying to say is, oh, we need to undo those maps, which, by the way, Republicans created. We need to undo those maps because of this racial issue, right? That's exactly what the letter from the Department of Justice said. You need to undo these districts because of race. That is the argument that Governor Abbott has made. And so they are literally saying something now that directly contradicts what they've been saying in the current court case. They can't have it both ways.
Okay, California then. So we were talking about that as well. So basically Newsom's point is like, all right, you're doing this now, and I wasn't going to plan to do this right now, but I will. And Mick says he doesn't think they're going to be able to because it's already too gerrymandered. So I guess that's a two-part question. What's the end game? Can California become essentially more blue, in your view? And then the second part is it the quote-unquote right thing to do? Should you fight fire with fire, as Governor Newsom has said?
Yes, and so my answer to both of those is yes. Yes, California actually, and Mick knows this, it's not a completely Democratic delegation. They do have space to at least to counter the 5 seats that Trump has tried to get Texas to do. And let's keep in mind, all this is happening because Trump basically said to Texas the same thing that he said to Georgia when he said, go find me 11,700 votes. He told Texas, go find me 5 seats, right? And so, yes, California has space to get another few seats out of it. New York has space. Even some other states like Maryland, they still have space to get 1 or 2 seats out of some of those states. And so, you know, the era of like unilaterally disarming, which is what basically Democratic states have done, that's got to be over with. Yes, it is fair to fight fire with fire, because in this case, what they're trying to do is basically to protect the country, to protect the democratic process. But the only way to do it when you're going up against somebody in the the form of a Trump or in the form of an Abbott or in the form of a Ken Paxton who's got some nerve, talking about Democratic legislators fleeing when he fled his own home to avoid a subpoena because he was under federal investigation. But, the only way to fight when you're fighting with these kinds of people that have absolutely no ethics when it comes to these matters is for you to use some measures that you wouldn't normally want to use.
Well, we like to get all views, Cliff, as you know, you've been on before, and we're happy to get yours as part of it today. So thanks for coming back on with us. It was good to see you again.